Tēnei au, tēnei mātou, e kai kauni hera, e kawange I ngā whakataunga, ngā tikanga, ki uta, ki tai, kia rewa ai ngā iwi katoa o, te tai tokorau, homi e, hui e, kai e.
Kia ora, Steve. Thank you for opening with karakia and welcome everybody. As I mentioned just before, those online, my name is John O'Gibbard. I'm the CEO at the Northern Regional Council, very temporarily sitting in the chair role until we have via standing orders appointed a chair for the day. I see that there are no members of the public in the gallery, so everyone knows our health and safety proceedings. Apologies received. We've received an apology from Councillor Peter Lucas-Jones and an apology from Deanne Wolfenstein, who has been delayed by a flight that is still trying to get here. Just looking at the agenda, proposing to move item 6.1 forward to be the first item rather than going through the minutes and the action sheet so that the committee can appoint a chair of its own members as per standing orders, and then we'll flick back to the first item of the day. Members happy with that?
Yeah.
Ka pai. In that case, going to item 6.1 on page 14 of your audit and risk agenda. Resolution 1 is to receive the item. Resolution 2 is to confirm the voting system should more than one nomination be received. Reasonably standard. Looking for a mover and seconder for resolutions 1 and 2.
Yeah, and I'll move 3, and I'll 1, 2, and 3, and I'll put for today John Blackwell, Councillor John Blackwell, in there as chairman for today, as you requested.
I'll second that.
Seconder. Any discussion? All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you very much. My job is now completed. I'll vacate the seat. Councillor Blackwell, sorry, aroha mai.
You could be well and you could be well and more, can't you? Hey, Jeff.
I've got a wrong sheet here.
There we go.
I got it wrong. I thought it was.
Oh, well, to get this meeting underway. The first protocol, Dion's going to be late. She'll be here about 10 o'clock.
Apologies. Yeah.
Well, how about we'll work on conflicts of interest on the way through. What did you say, Tim?
Apologies.
Yeah, any apologies?
Kia ora, Chair. I tabled Councillor Peter Lucas-Jones's apology.
Anyone?
And Deanne Wolfenstein for being late.
Yeah. Can I move it?
Yep.
Second?
Jeff.
Yeah. All in favour? Aye. Okay. So move on to 4.1.
Happy to move, Mr. Chairman.
Happy to
Thank you.
second.
Thank you. Over.
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry
Yes.
to interrupt, was that Mr. Blackwell?
Yeah. So that's the confirmation of the minutes for 28th of August 2024. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Any matters arising from that? Okay. Sheet. Action sheet, page 11.
I can move it.
Thank you. Jeff, second it, please.
Yeah, I'll second it.
So that's recommendation that the action sheet be received. Thank you. Matters arising from that?
Deanne also have some comments, but I haven't got them. Yes.
Okay, so this is from Dion. There are some questions I have raised on the table of actions for the general managers. Can these be answered?
And staff, have we received questions from?
No. Oh, well, maybe we'll come back to that when she's here.
Maybe we can circle back round after the meeting if that's the right, Chair, just back to Deanne to find out what those questions were, and we can provide a response in the back, outside of the meeting.
So, any comments on those outstanding actions?
Yeah, I've got it. Just a question. The last one about the koutou solar project, have we actually gone out to tender?
No, we haven't.
No, that's fine. Will the tender require engineer's report on the site stability?
I'm not sure on that. We can take
Because
that
I-
as a question, follow it up.
Because there have been stability issues, haven't there, in the past with like flooding and some soil movement. There's certainly a lot of plants got washed away.
We can note that and follow it up. I don't know the answer.
Yep. Thank you.
Just on that one, Chair, my wife recently unilaterally installed solar panels all over my garage roof and disrupted all the bird life, etc. But never mind, and our bank account. But the point I'm making is economics were piss poor, sorry, and the really good economics comes about actually buying the battery and the storage, not the solar panels, because New Zealand's 85% renewable, and you can buy power at very good prices at off peak. And if I could have made that decision again, I would have bought the storage, because she was after resilience, and we don't get it. So just you want to crunch the numbers on that one, and I think it's well worth looking at. And I know nationally they're talking about storage too, and whether you got those storage dams that you pump and stuff like that, or however you store power. I think it should be considered.
Louisa?
Through the chair. Yep, acknowledge what you say, Councillor Carr. Just to let you know, the decision was for us to investigate the feasibility of the project. We've done that. A decision has not been made yet to go forward with it. Hence the reason why we haven't gone to tender. There needs to be some more work done around actually whether this is something we want to bring back to council to propose as a project, because there's a big capital outlay here, so which is not currently included in our long-term plan. So it would have to come back through either an annual plan process or through the next LTP process. So we've done the feasibility. Yes, the power companies say it is feasible, and it would be us selling. It would either be us having the solar farm to sell power back to other people, or it would be leasing it to another company to put the solar panels up to be able to then sell the energy. So there's still a bit more work to do on whether or not we actually decide to bring it back to council for formal proposal through an annual plan or a long-term plan process.
I think our problem in New Zealand is not the cost of power, but it's supplying the power. So I put in a water pump for a farm, $14,000 put towards national grid. It cost me $20 a month in power charges. It cost me $100 a month in fees. So yeah, if you use it for yourself, great.
Yeah, I would have thought this would have gone through our new investment committee first to see whether it's worth looking into, whether it's an investment of NRC or did pass back. I would have thought it would have gone through that model first before it came to council.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think that makes sense for investment to get the next look at it, but I think audit and risk is the appropriate to get first bite, because you've got to figure out whether it's feasible at all and what other risks. I also note that the government has signalled that they're looking at making the whole energy sector more sustainable by looking at raising the price of power you sell back to the grid and more use of off peak. So you know, issues that Joe raised are being addressed nationally. So that might mean that a solar farm might be less profitable for us. It may not mean that, but it may. So it's a movable feast at the moment, the whole solar market. I mean, I signed up with Solar Zero last April and didn't know they were going to go bung in bloody November.
Oh, really?
But I'm still saving money, and I'm returning 70% of what my little 19 panels. It's only a quarter of my roof. I'm 70% of what I produce is going back to the grid. I'm only using 30% of it. And if I had, instead of having 5 megawatts of storage, I had 60. I'd never buy any power. So there was obviously a commercial intent by them. So Joe's right. I mean, storage is actually where it's all at because cost of panels is so cheap now. Anyway, that's enough. Thank you.
Kia ora, Chair. Just looking for clarification, just to make sure that staff bring it back to the right committee. I heard our chair reference going to the investment committee and then Councillor Craw saying coming back here. Just looking for clarity so we can make sure we bring in. I would have thought it's efficient to just go through one governance committee before going to council.
So I didn't mean come back to this one now. I said appropriate to come here first. So it's already been here. I've got.
Oh, I see. I see. Okay, thank you. John.
Oh, sorry.
Through the chair, and firstly, I apologise. I didn't pick this up in the minutes when I was preparing my items for the meeting, but item 7903, which is about the guidelines for selecting RMA hearing commissioners, the task I was given has been completed. That was paper was presented to the council meeting on 10th of December and approved.
Oh,
That's completed.
any other matters?
That's all good.
Okay, we move on. 6.2, page 17, internal audit schedule. Those recommendations are odd, aren't they? What's the difference between 1 and 2?
It is an error, Chair. It's a junior
Maybe we just do 1 and
3.
So does anyone want to move recommendation 1? That the report.
I'm happy to.
Yeah, I see.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Okay. We'll drop the second one and go to the third one, that the Audit and Risk Committee support the engagement of Deloitte New Zealand to carry out a reassurance of council's internal audit.
Yeah, I'll
Thanks, Joe.
Likewise. Thank you.
Just wondered why it's taking the audit to find this problem. So, is that normal process, is it?
Sorry, Chair. What problem?
Well, when you read through it, it sounds like some of it's not fit for purpose, some of the software.
Oh, the contract management.
Audit's findings, page 20, where you talk about the identified lack of system, including software.
Yeah,
Support, obviously not working it well. Not fit for purpose is pretty strong then, isn't it?
I can speak to that, Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we've, as part of our agreed internal audit program, we've undertaken an audit of our contract management system. And it's identified that we do have a lack of systems. There's no software system that actually manages our contract management, and our processes and training required to support the level of diversity and complexity within our contract has been identified as not being adequate for what we need, which potentially may expose us to increased risk. Just note that we haven't seen any losses arising from contracts not being appropriately managed yet. That was not part of the audit findings. It was about the systems that are in place that are not appropriate to support the level of work we do. And as part of that, we have identified a plan going forward to have a review of our internal audit findings and recommendations, and to assist us provide some advice as to what may be the best steps to actually resolve these issues going forward. Noting that by June we're intending to have a schedule of improvements, and also looking to see whether or not this work can be incorporated into an existing project. That's Project Apollo, which is looking at some software systems that can help assist with this work. If that's not able to be incorporated into that project, then we will be looking at how we resource that, and it may need to be resourced through the 26-27 plan.
Yeah, Chair.
See,
Yeah, that's, the finding is, alarming. And, I just wonder what alternative procedures we've had in place to sort of fill the gaps, because the finding does say that there are gaps. So, I just, as I said, wonder what alternative procedures have we got there to make sure that it works and that we're paying the right people for the right staff and that they've done the work, because that's the essence of this.
Contracts are currently stored in SharePoint. We will work with our managers to raise the importance of managing contracts appropriately, given there is a lack of systems. Working with our managers in the first instance is the best thing we can do in the interim. Until we can actually scope a project and put in place an improved system, that would be the best course of action.
And was this actual work the first time that it's come up in our internal audit schedule to go through contract management system?
Correct. It's the first internal audit we've done with contract management.
Okay, and that stemmed from 3 years back where the work had been prioritised. The areas that we're going to look at had been sort of scheduled.
Correct. So it was agreed with this committee that we look at that as part of the internal audit program.
Yeah, and then with the external auditors, they didn't come up with a similar finding because their testing is not at that sort of detailed level. It is
correct. So they do an audit of our annual report, but they don't do an audit necessarily as deep as looking into what systems we have to manage contracts. It's not within their scope or remit.
Given that they will have access to our internal audit work, is there the possibility that they would incorporate this in their program this year?
At an additional fee, yes, an additional scope. But we're looking to engage PwC to undertake that work for us.
Just a question. Was this software, was that intended to be paid for with an Infor software that we didn't go for in the end, or back that up?
That is part of the issue.
Yeah.
So they were not able to deliver on that financials.
Right.
So there was the intention to actually address that.
Yeah.
But they weren't able to deliver. So that's just left us in the position we're currently in.
And of course, what we're saying is, we're not saying that we have detected any kind of fraud or exposure to fraud. It's just that there's a risk that contracts could be mismanaged or they could be less efficiently managed.
Correct.
Well, that's about it, isn't it?
Correct.
Kia ora, Chair, through the chair. At the moment, we all managers and staff manage the contracts themselves. So we've got template contracts and you've got checks and balances there, but we don't actually have a system that logs all the contracts in there and that has a connection between the contract management system and the financial payment system. So it's more it's a manual process that we've got at the moment without a system to be able to add some extra robustness to the process. That's essentially what we're highlighting. And what Bruce was saying, thank you, Councillor Craw, was that our previous Infor solution was going to address that. Now that we moved away from that, it's not going to be. So this here is just highlighting, I guess, to a degree what we already knew, and the fact that we need to, we've got to a size as an organisation, the number and complexity of our contracts, that we would be wise to get in a system to be able to add some extra robustness to how we manage them.
So, well, a supplementary question, Mr. Chairman. There's also a reference here to our project or program management software. There's no chance of us combining them? It's totally different functions, I suppose, are they?
Yeah, they are different to an extent.
Save money.
If we could combine the two, there would be some merits and cost savings within that. And the team will be looking at an appropriate solution. So
because we have to address that.
This
This has been highlighted that issue has to be addressed as well. I'm just wondering if there's any chance that you can combine them. They are separate functions, but
And that's why we're looking through that existing project Apollo to see whether there is an opportunity there. That's got program management functionality, and the question is whether or not that can incorporate contract management as well.
Any other comments?
No, thank you.
So I gather with number 3, we've endorsed that option number 1, audit and engagement of Deloitte New Zealand. Carry out. Audit. Yes, agreed on. Okay, so if nothing else, we move on to 6.3, page 26. Fraud, corruption, and dishonesty activity update. I guess you've all read it. There's one recommendation of the report fraud, corruption, and dishonesty activity update on Mandy. And assurance lead and dated the 4th of February 26 be received.
I'll see it.
Thanks, Jack. In favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Matters rising?
Just, Mr. Chairman, I'm really pleased to see that number 5, that's 121. Sorry, no, supply invoice fraud.
Which
115
Which page?
is on page 28. It's so low because that's normally the way that fraud's normally picked up and what normally occurs in an organisation. But obviously our systems are pretty damn robust. I mean, I'm not questioning the rankings. I think the rankings are great. I'm not qualified to question them. But I'm just pleased that supply invoice fraud is ranked so lowly. So I'm saying our systems must be pretty damn good.
Excellent. Any other comments? Very quiet. George. Welcome, George. There's no other matters. We can move on to 6.3, 6.4. Page 36.
I'll move the recommendation.
Second it, please. Thanks, Jeff. Matters rising.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'll just ask the staff, how's Safety Champion working out? Is it easy to use? And
Yeah, no, it's really good. I mean, there's been good feedback. Seems to be an intuitive system. We get notifications of incidents that come through directly to us. And we're also looking to see if we can utilise that system to be a bring-up system as well for training records. And so notify managers or staff when their staff's training is required or expired, and maintain the records for that as well. So very happy with it.
and if staff are finding it easy to use.
Yeah, I have not had any no negative comments have been received.
I think
Directly from myself.
that's always a benefit, isn't it? People say, oh God, it's something new. The adoption rate is slow.
Yeah, interesting. On page 38, you've got a number of incidences and driving to the highest, but is that natural?
Yes.
I heard the other day, farmers, it's animals going to be the problem for us. Health and safety, pretty hard to get around that one. Unless you're all animals out of the country.
Go vegan, John.
I don't think so. Any other comments?
Oh, just the level of activity, the number of consents that this council process is significant, isn't it?
Which page is that?
You get
Oh,
handy.
We haven't finished yet. Go.
We're out, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're one ahead of us.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, we'll move on to 6.5. Services quarterly
Oh,
update.
you have to jump across.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. Oh, well,
Joe?
better,
Later.
yeah, move the,
Recommendation?
yeah.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Jack.
I'd like to congratulate the manager for such an exhaustive and comprehensive report. It's massive.
Right, all in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Against? Right, matters rising?
Oh, I've got one little question. Where we give ourselves consent to do stuff is, sorry, is it automatically go to commissioners or in some low level consents we grant ourselves consent and what's the threshold?
Through the chair, that's a good question. We have been sort of looking at policies and procedures in that regard. To me, it really comes down to the significance of the activity. If it's a very minor activity, then I think there's more comfort that it can be dealt with on a delegated level. But if it's for more major activity, then yes, we'll be looking at, particularly if it required notification and hearings be done independently, and we often engage independent processing consultants.
Okay, so I mean, I trust that judgment essentially comes down to you and your senior management, doesn't it?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, I'm happy with that. I think we need to ensure is, are we protecting our staff from accusations of not being transparent? So do we impose a higher standard of notification on stuff that on consents that we we grant ourselves, or is there a process by which we maintain transparency?
Well, certainly we treat any application on its merits and equally, so we don't differentiate in regards to notification, whether it's a council consent application or a application from a member of the public. We're treated the same, and we follow robust.
Yeah, but they might be considered the same by like aggrieved ratepayers. I'm saying it's about ensuring we get that transparency. I'm not worried about the quality of the decision you make. We trust the staff to do that. So I'm just saying let's put it another way. Do you know of any incidents where we've granted ourselves a consent and then being accused of secrecy or self-interest or something?
Not that I can recall.
Right, okay. Okay, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess.
Jeff? Yep, I've just got a few questions about the compliance abatement notices. How long after a visit is an abatement notice required to be sent to
Could you clarify that?
So if your team turn up to a property and they feel that there's an issue and they want to issue an abatement notice, how long is the required time?
So there's no set time frame. Obviously, it depends on the circumstances of the individual matter. It might be that if we consider it an urgent matter, then we try to promptly issue an abatement notice. Give an opportunity for compliance, but it hasn't been fulfilled, then we might also say we'll issue an abatement notice at a later date. So there's no set time frame. It's not like a prosecution.
Okay, so would you consider 90 days to be within the time frame?
Again, without knowing the circumstances, I can't answer that question.
I'm just asking, do you think that would be, good practice?
Well, again, as I explained, that there are some cases where that time is given to address the matter, and that hasn't been resolved, and we look at issuing enforcement action.
So the team go on a visit. Farmer doesn't think there's any issues. Then 90 days later, he receives an abatement notice. But you thought that was good standard practice?
I explained it's case by case.
I'm just saying, is that
in these circumstances, but I can't.
But do you have a policy?
Whether or not it's in accordance with proper procedure.
Well, it doesn't sound like proper procedure to get an abatement notice 90 days after a visit. Is there no procedure where you must, within a time frame, either contact the landowner with a phone call if there's an abatement notice, or serve an abatement notice within a time frame?
Okay, cool. Yes,
I might
Thank you,
be able
Heather.
to add a
Come
bit
on.
more on that. So, if it's a farm dairy effluent inspection, anything where there's significant complaints seen by contract at the time, an urgent action notice.
Yes.
In the NRC team phone, they always try to make it the next day. So I think that situation arising where the farmer is completely unaware and has no communication from NRC and then just gets an abatement notice 90 days later, it's very unlikely.
Okay, well, I've got a letter coming to me today or tomorrow with that, which raises some concerns about any policy that you have on keeping a timely fashion of and serving, abatement notices.
This is a tool under
Yes.
and the RMA sets the timelines for abatement notices, infringement notices, prosecution, so the statute of limitations.
Yeah.
There's no statute of limitations for abatement. So technically, we could issue one 2 years after.
But is that good
Obviously,
practice?
2 years minimum.
Okay, so should this committee then consider what a good practice should be through the audit risk? Because have no as you alluded to give an abatement notice after 2 years because you thought, oh, I've missed that one, I'll send them one.
Well, I mean,
For
I'm
example,
just using
you've
that as an
referenced
extreme
it.
example. We don't do that.
No, but you have referenced it. So, for myself, there should be a timeline that if you can't get organised and send someone an abatement notice within a certain time, sorry, that's just hard luck. Like to not have a timeline around serving abatement notices, which is a fine of $750 plus.
Abatement notice has no fine.
Okay, but there is an
It's
abatement.
infringement notice.
Right.
Two different things.
Okay.
Infringement notice does have a statute of limitations. We have to issue that within 4 months of the date that the offence was.
So the concern that I have is that you can still be breaking the law for a time because it's an abatement notice to fix something. Don't you think that we should have standard practice that if there's an issue and you're going to have an abatement notice, you would know to get it sorted?
And that's why we leave the urgent action notices.
But we don't know if you don't serve an abatement notice. If you say it can take up to 2 years, then if it's worth an abatement notice, wouldn't it happen within a certain time frame?
And they do. I mean, I could find out the date of how long it takes us to do our abatement notices. But anything that's bad or ongoing or having adverse effects, all of those get an urgent action notice and get a phone call either the same day or the next day. Nothing is left for 90 days with no communication from NRC.
Okay. Oh, well, I've got something coming. I thought I'd bring it up today because if we don't have a policy on what is clear and understanding, I don't know whether we need to have one because I'm quite surprised that there isn't a timeline. Because an abatement notice is directing somebody to fix something. If you want to fix something, there must be something wrong. So I'd like something to come back to this committee on some timelines. And if timelines aren't set, then the abatement notice is why, because you can't just bring up something that you might think after 2 years if you've referenced or 90 days.
That's fine. I mean, you can come up with them.
Just through the chair again, as we've explained, there are no set timeframes under the RMA, but we can come back to say, well, look, this is normal practice. Yeah, potentially are always going to be exceptions depending on the circumstances.
It's only just
So
been
we can have
highlighted.
a general target or guideline, but there's no, I think the next federal ability to take formal enforcement action.
But under the Audit and Risk Committee, that is,
Yeah.
This is where we bring these things up. And definitely like something to come back with timelines. Which should be standard good practice for Northern Regional Council.
As I said, we can certainly, we can summarise some of that and give you a full context and then provide a target. But I think it just needs to be a target rather than a set blunt tool.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the committee.
Come on, next item.
Oh, kia ora, Chair. I just wonder, Ray, the next item, Chair, is around the compliance monitoring framework. That might be the place to be able to identify what a best practice, I'm looking at you guys while I'm talking here, but a best practice target would be for serving abatement notices. Yeah.
Well,
Because
because
you
you
guys-
we don't have a best practice on
Yeah.
such an important role,
Yep.
which has conflict and all sorts of stuff with it, that we don't have certain procedures to follow.
Good point, Jefferson. The next item.
We can add it potentially to the next, the compliance monitoring framework in the RMA. Yep.
Any other comments on 6.5? No? We'll move on to 6.6, page 53.
I'm happy to move them all together, but I'm not sure if everyone else.
Recommendation 1 and 2.
1 and 2, yeah.
We'll just move on.
We just do one? Okay, I'll move one.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Second. Thanks, Joe. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Okay, now what's wrong with 2? Appropriate documentation framework to set out council's overall approach to fulfilling its RMA CME functions.
Well, I guess it's, Jim, a salient question would be, is Jeff's question adequately covered at all in the EPA best practice guidelines? I had a look through it. I can't see a timeline in it. So
Thanks, Joe.
It's quite a complex one, and we've got the Ministry for the Environment's paper on this as well. And I just wonder whether we should actually workshop it at another meeting, actually, rather than approve it. Just have a bit of a good discussion about it, and it's a cultural issue too. The culture of the organisation. And
Is there support for Joe's workshop?
I support it.
have we workshopped this before?
It's been to the committee before through the chair.
Kia ora, Chair. You can either workshop it here now, or if you would like, yes, this committee could refer it back to an all of council workshop and I assume, Councillor Carr, that's so that you can have a more thorough deep dive of what's in or proposed to be in the compliance monitoring framework. And that then provides an opportunity to further discuss the issue that Jeff's raised around timeframes. I also note that there's been some kōrero around notified versus non-notified compliance monitoring inspections. I assume that's the purpose of it. Also, the committee could provide us any initial feedback so that when we have that workshop, staff are able to provide a response and facilitate that discussion in a workshop.
I think we could have a discussion. I'm just trying to think, page 57 and things. We got a default position that's developed in this council that we end up possibly going into pretty formal processes, and I was thinking of a fire on commercial land at Ruawai, and I just thought if we workshop it, we could actually talk about those circumstances and where we got to with the council, and probably because this is a public meeting and there's individual cases that we might be discussing, I just don't think it's appropriate to actually do it in an open meeting, name people as instances. I just think it would be a good discussion. It has been raised that was a case that you actually raised, John.
Yeah. It seemed like an interesting case where someone didn't actually understand the rules, and business as usual for the last 50 years has changed regulations, and got caught out. And we wondered whether there should have been a little bit of, first offence should be considered.
Yeah,
rather than just-
what's your objective, if you go into an enforcement process, what's your objective? Is objective to actually have a fine, or is the objective, what is the objective if you've got someone that's actually, once they're informed, will be totally compliant? You could assume that. So, it's an issue.
Oh, is there support to workshop this?
Yeah, I would support it,
Mr.
definitely.
Chairman, I'm just worried about, I'm just concerned that matters have been raised that have already been dealt with. I thought we'd already established that the intention of the monitoring and enforcement was not to use fines, but to get the situation abated or fixed as quickly as possible. And when you have a look at the percentage of incidents that actually go to prosecution, they're very, very tiny. And even the ones that go to infringement are a small minority. So I'm just wondering what problem we're trying to solve here. What is the problem we're trying to solve?
But they're not a small minority when you see them coming up.
That's abatement notices. You have a look at infringements.
No,
That's pretty small. Approximately what proportion of incidents end up as infringements? I'm sorry, it's a bit of a tricky question. You're talking 5%?
Less than that. We do have some figures about how many, if you like, interactions that compliance staff are involved with. So we can give you some good context about.
Yeah, that'd be handy. Like in other words, that those interactions that don't result in any abatements at all, they just result in an agreement to improve. Yeah. Well, I'm not against the idea of a further workshop, but I'm just wondering what problem we're trying to solve here. That's all. I'll go along with it if you
Okay.
want it.
Anyone against the workshop? Either not. Okay. We'll leave that where it is.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, so we are having a further workshop for council.
There's a question for the committee. Do you want it to be just with council? Or do you want the independent members of the Audit and Risk Committee to be just us?
Just us. Okay.
Sorry.
Can be just us. Well, what do you think, Jack? You want to?
Well, if you're going to change your policies, it should really go to everyone.
Okay.
I would have thought a workshop for council.
What do you think, George and Steve?
Plus the independent.
I suppose I think that we do need to workshop it and see how big the problem is, if there is one.
What do you agree?
George, council.
Well, my recommendation for you to consider would be that, and it's good to have some data, as Colin just said, less than 3% or less than 5%. So my recommendation would be to workshop it at this level and then put a recommendation up to the board in case the workshop found that what's currently in play here and the paper before us is actually sufficient. It would be good to be prepared in case there are changes to the RMA in respect of these timelines that may be being proposed by the current administration.
Okay. You happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are some issues that we don't really want to have recorded, and privacy is a bit of an issue, but yeah. Okay.
I agree with that, Mr. Chairman. I mean, we may want to bring up individual cases, which you can't do in a public meeting.
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay.
So just to give there's a workshop of this committee.
The other thing
Workshop of this committee.
I think we need to bring up with this meeting is non-notified visits.
Sorry.
Well, that can be part of the workshop too. Yeah.
Jono?
Kia ora, Chair, just seeking clarification. My understanding was it's a workshop of all councillors plus the independent members of this committee. There's been a few different. Yeah, okay, couple of.
Okay. Thank you. Will we put that to bed? 6.6?
Would it be helpful just to seek some clarification from committee members if, when we workshop it, would it be useful for staff to provide an overview of some of the statistics that Colin mentioned around there? If members want to send through some specific situations that you would like us to be able to delve into and explain, I just want to make sure that the workshop is helpful
and is answering the questions, and that we don't get into a workshop, questions raised, and then we have to go away and do some more research and come back to a second workshop. If members want to send through the stuff that they'd like us to make sure we cover in that workshop, we can do so.
Colin?
It's just one important comment. If there are matters that are before the court, and I don't believe it's appropriate for
Correct.
discussion.
Come on.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of questions as well too. One, please, Colin, section 12, the transfer of a case to the EPA. Are those the only criteria? Just a conflict of interest and insufficient?
I know that's the criteria we've come up with, but if you want to further criteria, I mean, there's no set criteria.
No set criteria? Okay, that's interesting. Thank you. And then I was wondering further on, I'm not sure if it's in this paper or a bit further down, who trains your enforcement officers?
Okay, we can give you a quite detailed response to that, but there is a comprehensive course that is run by.
I think there's a 3 or 4 day course that they will do, and it's not just like there's various things in it.
Okay, so I was interested in the warrant, whether that's referenced against parliamentary regulations or statute powers that can be included in the warrant.
Yeah, well, certainly we actually issue warrants, and they're actually quite specific in terms of what powers officers, individual officers have. In addition to the comprehensive course, we do have ongoing training through workshops. We obviously, particularly for compliance staff, we have regular courses regarding how you deal with, if you like, difficult situations. So they do receive a good level of training.
Thank you.
That'll all be at our workshop.
I've just taken those notes down.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, if we'll schedule the workshop. If members want to send through, maybe via myself, particular topics that they'd like us to cover, then we'll make sure that we can do that.
So just some clarity. So obviously this draft compliance monitoring framework will be part of the workshop, plus the EPA's guidelines, because they're really useful. I mean, I spent a bit of time looking at those early this morning, and they, well, if we adopted that, then it would hopefully answer a few of the questions.
Back you up, Tess. Actually, on page 137, it actually gives you 3.5 months to do an abatement notice. It's actually in the writings here, I'm pretty sure. Statutory limitation period under the RMA.
So what page one of what
Oh, I'm just reading the attachment.
guideline, the MFB guidelines, or
Yes, well, I'm on to page, it just got here, for infringement notices.
yeah, so again,
Yep.
we've already identified the
Yep,
infringement
yep.
notice.
But there's no statutory anything for an abatement notice. Okay. 3.5 months is a long time though, for infringement notice.
Not necessarily, because we still have to gather the evidence. So we might first discover something, but we still have to have evidence to show now.
Okay.
Any other comments on this? We move on.
So we're not adopting part 2, but referring it to a risk. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay. So move on to 6.7, page 190, financial report.
Happy to move, Mr. Chair.
31st of January 25. Thank you. Jack, second it, please.
Yep.
So,
Is it, you say 90?
one page, 190.
190, yeah, I thought so.
Bruce.
Wondering whether or not Simon could give a bit of an update on table 3 in terms of the reserves. That you okay?
Yep, there you go.
Yep, I just wanted to take 5 minutes to delve into table 3, page 192, offer a couple of insights in there. So that table 3 has 6 columns with values in it, and I just wanted to focus on the third column, and there's a figure in there of $2.927 million, and that's saying we've transferred or we've reinvested, recapitalised gains of more than budget by $2.9 million. you know? And so where does that $2.9 million, how's that made up? Where did these gains come from, greater than budget, that we put away and recapitalise, right? Because there's three components to it. The first component is that we've made more gains than we budgeted to make. So we said we were going to make, at this stage of the year, 2.590 in column 2, but we've actually made $4.5 million. So we've made $1.9 million more than what we said we were going to make at this stage of the year. So that's been recapitalised. Don't need it. We never budgeted for it. We've recapitalised. The second bit is that some of the gains in the budget we said we needed to pay for standard operations or general specific operations, things like Northland Inc., things like vessel replacement, things like investment fees. And that's the 260K there. We don't need $260,000 of gains to pay for these standard operations at the moment. So let's recapitalise them. And the third thing is we said we needed, at the very bottom there, line there, the brownish line, we said we needed about $1,013,000 worth of gains as general funding. We don't need that because we're running a surplus. We only need about, we've got 280 in there. So we've got $733,000 worth of gains that we don't need for general funding. So we're recapping that. So we've recapped 2927 more than we said we would. That's made up of gains greater than budget, gains not required for specific operations, and gains not required for our general funding. So those are the three components of why we've recapitalised more gains than we said we would. Does that make that table a little bit easier to read? The second thing about that table is this. If you look at column 5, the full year adopted budget, and it says in the top brown row, it says we needed over the year $5.16 million worth of gains, and you come back to the end of January and we've made 4.5 already, so about 600 short. I'm writing a paper to go to the investment committee to de-risk some of those gains. So I'm saying, look, we're nearly at full year budget. Let's take off our general funding requirement, which is 2017, and what we have to pay in Northland Inc., about 990 odd. Let's take them off the table now, put them in TDs. We don't need to spend them, and we mature them in about August when we come back to you and say, look, this is how we've washed up at the end of the year. What's your plan? Of de-risk gains back in February, they're there to use, rather than coming back, oh, hey, what's your plan? The funds just took a bad turn in June and all our gains are gone. So that's my proposal. That's what I've written a paper. I want to wait to the end of January to make sure that the gains still exist to this level. But just to reiterate, we've nearly made full year budget and gains. Let's de-risk them, take them off the table, put them in TDs, let them mature in August so we know we've got them when we're talking to you at the end of the year. Does that make sense? Is that something that I'd get support for? I have done it before. It's just saying, let's take the cream. Let's protect it. Don't use it. Bring it out in August when we want it.
Thanks, Simon. You said the end of January, but we're already past that. You haven't got the details yet.
And we've got the report. Comes in. Will come in. Look, yeah, 20th odd of this month.
Jack.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I'd just like to ask our three independent members members of the committee what they think.
We did it, as he said, some last year, and absolutely, let's take it while we've got it, put it aside. And
I guess the downside is you're putting it in TDs, lower return, but lower risk, you know what I mean?
George?
So always good to think about these sorts of things in term deposits. What's your thinking about the sort of rate you'd be looking for term deposits, Simon?
At the moment, I'm thinking I'm going to go out for 4 or 5 months. I'll be getting between 4 and 5%. And the 3-year average on the funds is around 6.6. So there is opportunity cost in doing it, but just a lot of risk, and it protects it for the, when we start wanting to do things at the year end.
Yes, there's some high degrees of uncertainty. The ANZ's offering 4.65 at the moment.
Yes,
When you can get in with, that'll be good.
Welcome, Theon. Deanne, I trust you enjoyed your flight north.
Regional flights, who loves them? We need to invest in our own. Look, my question was going to be same as George's around the interest rates. They're starting to drop at the moment, particularly on TD, the 6 and the 12 months. I just looked at them yesterday. I mean, a 6 month would be good, but what is the appetite past 6 months?
Yeah, I would have to mature it in August, before August.
Okay.
Yep, I'd have to, because that's when we have our year-end meeting, and I want the cash then, want the flexibility to spend it or do something with it then.
Is there any other risks that we need to understand in terms of the having sort of some of that available for any other operational matters that may come up? So we've got legal stuff.
No, I don't think so. From what I know now, no. Yeah. And liquidity's all good. We can get it out easy. And the thing is, we have got it in TDs. TD, I could.
And so that's probably just that. I mean, I'll leave it to the investments committee to make that suggestion around how long the room stuff. There's no issue from me on it.
Yeah, I think our biggest risk is our risk to our social licence from our community, because this happens every year that I've been on this council, and we put out these rate rises that are unnecessary. Look at this every year, and it's a reflection of us as a council that we don't get it right, and that we're sort of banking money that our community didn't need to pay us in rates. Yeah.
Are we banking it because we're being good and frugal? Sorry, I missed your first half of your conversation. Or are we banking it because we're purely making surplus?
There's three components to it. One is that we're banking it because our gains have exceeded budget by quite a considerable amount. And about 333 of it is because we have not required it to fund our general operations because we have surplus. But we're banking it, bringing it back to the table in August. I'll bring it back. Remember also we've got the $1.075 million we tucked away for the specific purpose of applying it to the 25-26 rate strike. So, looking 2.5% in New Zealand.
You don't do a bob both ways.
Kia ora, Chair, and just acknowledging the point that Councillor Carr is raising and just referencing what Simon said. I guess we budget to make X percentage on our gains, and here we're making just under $2 million more than what we thought we were going to at this stage of the financial year. Plus we've got, whether it's a phasing issue or whether it's things that we're not going to deliver, we've got just under $1 million worth of funds that we haven't needed to support the business. That's why we've set up that process now where we're going to utilise that money to reduce rates. So if this does actually come to fruition at the end of the financial year, rather than in our annual plan workshops where we've said there's going to need to be a bounce back of a rate because we've used that $1 million or proposing to use that $1 million in this annual plan, you won't need to do the bounce back because you'll get another year worth of these budgets that aren't needing to be used because we've got more gains or whatever else that then can continue to keep the rates down. So it's like we budget to receive X. If we receive more, I think this is the point that you've raised, Joe, is rather than allocating it at the end of the financial year to whatever new projects might come up that don't otherwise go through an annual plan process, you should actually use that money to take to bring the rates down of what you have gone out and consulted on.
Yeah, I said that last year too.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing this annual plan. And if this comes, and then you can keep rolling that forward.
And if I get it off the table now, we can have that discussion with cash. That's this cash then, taking it off and bringing it back in August so we can do that.
So the government is doing a review of councils across New Zealand. You know, how they've been managing their finances and their value for rates, etc. Has there been any communication with this council about that process, or are they just doing it off our annual reports?
I'm not aware of any specific engagement they've had with us, so it's just off our publicly available annual reports that they're doing it at the moment. But through the LG Local Government Act reforms that have been spoken about and due to come out midway through this year, they are looking at having benchmarking across the sector. So I would anticipate if that does go through into law that they will be asking us for specific details over and above and in addition to our annual reports to be able to, in a more detailed way, consider each council against each other as to how efficient we're being in our rating and service delivery.
And that's going to be based on what they deem to be core activities, eh?
That's what they're proposing to do, yes.
So that you know, it is going to give quite differing evaluations across the councils in New Zealand.
Which will be interesting, if I can share, which will be interesting as well, because if you have a look at the material that's been released so far, the majority of the core services that are identified are district council core services. There's only actually one core service that's been identified so far that has a really strong link to regional councils, and that's around hazard and civil defence management. If you have a look at all of the other things that we deliver, whether it's biosecurity or river management, those other things, it's not there as a core service. The other thing that they're proposing to do is to link a rating cap both to core services, but also to things that aren't core services. So there's only a certain percentage of your rates can be allocated to non-core service activities. So there's not a whole lot of detail at the moment. Most of the detail is what's been released in the media releases sort of thing. So it'll definitely be something for us to watch as we go through this year and up into the middle of this year. And I know the regional sector has been advocating to the Minister of Local Government to say, hey, look, don't just forget about regional councils when you're having a look at what you identify as core services.
So is that, as we've got more definite information, it should come through this committee.
I agree with that.
Just a disclosure, I met with the local government New Zealand group in Waitangi. They requested meetings with different iwi at Waitangi and asked for feedback around what they're doing, and it was quite clear to me that they're trying to uniform everything up and down the country, including regional councils. So there was 2 representatives on that board that met with us that are from regional councils from Aitutahi and Texas. And I think some of what they're proposing makes sense. And we discussed a number of points of difference between where financials are on regional councils and then the districts. And they could not give me a uniformity of how good decisions are made across the country. It's just how one creates your own policies here. I talked around that, the Bible that you guys talk about. Is that Bible you talk about?
12.
You talk about?
Yes, please.
Yeah, the Bible that you link to your policies and procedures.
12 options.
Yeah, and I said to them, is that consistent across the country? No, it's not consistent across the country around how they practice it. So I believe that the people that are on there, so I met with the CEO, the chair, and 4 of the board members, and they are good people. They will be giving us some feedback in April about some of the early discussions and findings. Betty came with me today.
Yeah, good. So just a question for Ian. Were they looking at a stable platform for the development of regional councils' financials, or were they looking to sort of go for a more conformed, like a straitjacket fits sort of approach?
I suspect there's a bit of a straitjacket fit, and also setting some benchmarks for all councils, regardless of their definition, regional or district. So yeah, they just want to look at how they can platform and everyone has the same, if I would put it that way. Their biggest complaint that they've had up and down the country is rate rises. And justification of rate rises when balance sheets look fairly healthy and amongst councils. So that was their biggest complaint from local communities, which goes to your social licence question around how do we justify rate increases when our balance sheets look very healthy. So that was part of their biggest complaint up and down the country.
Through you, Chair. So with the political, what's going on in the political spectrum, does that mean, should we be looking at our risk register and that for that specific risk? Because there is, a potential, if they're trying to, as you say, Dan, straitjacket us, then how is that going to impact on what we're currently delivering? So the question is, should the political situation be part on our risk register? I think it's already on there, but just increasing that risk.
And I agree with Steve. I think that's on there, and we can actually refine that to reflect what's happening in the space as well.
Because it's a reform, so it's going towards a reform. So they're consulting to prepare the review for a reform, which then goes towards the strategic approach.
And the challenge is, I just refer to the example in our own LTP when we did go out and try and propose to reduce some of our rates for whether it's the emergency services rate or whether it's the sports facilities rates, that I'm sure will not be identified as core services for regional council when the government puts it out. I'd almost guarantee that those won't be there as core services. The challenge for council will be, we went out and consulted and proposed to reduce the rates for those areas, and there was strong community feedback that they supported those activities. And how council then makes a decision in that space, it may well be like Deanne says, that if a straitjacket approach is applied from central government, that decision might be taken away. If you've got a certain cap that you've got to be in, it might make those decisions more might force some of those harder decisions on councils across the country.
I think when you consult publicly, sort of click on a couple of heartstrings, and that you just mentioned two of them, so they're really important to be outside the city, rural areas. But we don't consult on everything, which we can't. But if you did, I think you'd probably find other people, other parts back and save money. When we first came on this council, it's quite different. Like, we were losing staff down to central government. We had an election, we had a change of government. It seems to be, I wouldn't say it's going the other way around, but we know central government has got rid of a lot of staff, unemployment's gone up. So we're in quite a different environment to what we were probably 2 years ago. So we need to chop and change with that.
So what I'm hearing is we're quite well equipped to ride this one out, because we've got hay in the hay barn, basically. And we're projected a 4 to 5% rate rise for next year with our current settings. So I think we're not looking too bad here.
I say you're a lot better off than what it was when I was in corporate council, where we didn't have the money to fund going forwards. We'd pay our rates in advance. So this is quite.
Look, we might be all right financially, but we actually might be exposed for criticism.
Yes,
and
sure.
Whether we've funded, say, rescue helicopters for emotional reasons rather than doing an agnostic assessment of their need is one thing. And when you talk about spending money, I think the government is going to pursue that rather important line of do we actually need to be spending on certain things? They're going to go down that track, and they've done it because there's a lot of we've got a lot of people in our community who are quite analytical, and very financially articulate, and probably are communicating with government about NRC's finances and in a critical way. And I'm quite sure of that, in fact. And So,
Yeah, I think one of the points is that our rates have gone up higher than probably, other councils have. And when I look at this chart here on page 190, it says rates coming in, you're actually ahead of forecast, which is reassuring, because I thought on these hard times rates column one, we might have been behind. But when you drop down a bit, I noticed that grants and subsidies as well there. It's reason.
It was.
Can you speak on it?
The grants and subsidies?
Yeah, very much back on what we forecasted.
Yes, mainly due to funding for some of our river projects that have yet to be built. So what generally happens, they'll bill it and then it's moved off to reserve, because a lot of the funding is set aside for capital projects. And so they haven't been billed as yet. It's the lower than expected.
Okay, any other discussion on this? Moved and seconded, that's it, is it? Life insurance.
Mr. Chairman, I see we've adopted a Simon Says Do This approach. Sorry, I just couldn't have
Okay, insurance update.
One thing. I'm happy to move this. I'm overjoyed at this report. I can't believe we got off so lightly.
Yeah, I'm happy to second it.
I can't believe it.
All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Discussion?
yeah, Chair, page 197, 15 million cover for our public liability. Seems really light for an organisation like this.
Yes, Bruce?
Yeah, there's a secondary level of cover as well, councillor Carr. So if you look above the next line, we've got 145 million. Secondary level of cover above.
Oh, okay.
So you combine those, yeah. So we do have much higher.
Okay, thank you.
But your insurance has come back from last year, I read somewhere.
No, it's got up 5%.
5%, yeah, okay.
We'd actually budgeted 20% based on the previous trend analysis. So our savings are about $120,000 over the insurance year, and we've reduced that for the following year to make sure that it's not going to have that impact on rates, so it doesn't need to be, provided the trend remains the same.
So Chair, when you have your annual plan workshop on the 19th, you'll see that 120k that Bruce just referred to here now was dropped out of the next annual plan and further reducing the rate for next year.
What's the difference? When you planned 20% increase, what do you think the point of difference was where it landed at just a 5% increase?
I think there was two things. Probably one major thing is that we haven't had a significant increase in the capital value of our assets, so that hasn't really increased insurance premiums. And I don't know, but I speculate that ongoing increases of 20% aren't going to be sustainable for the customers like us. So perhaps the industry has realised that and made a more gentle allowance on the increase than they have previously.
So aren't individual clients ranked? I mean, we must be ranked as a low claim risk. Or do we consider that we have a good risk management framework, which means our exposure to insurance is lower? I mean, I don't know. There's a number of contributing reasons, isn't there? I can't believe that it's no change to our premium in so many areas. Amazing.
Yeah.
Jeff?
Yep. I know we went over it last year, Bruce. Are we still self-insuring some aspects?
No.
We were looking at the vehicles at one stage.
We did look at that, but we didn't actually put that in place. We're still fully insuring.
Okay, so we're $750,000 in insurance premiums. Sure, we've got river schemes here that we insure, stuff like that. But when do we start looking at the tipping point? We've got a big bank balance that we get interest on. When do we start saying let's throw the 700 million or 700,000, keep the public liability or whatever? But there must be a tipping point where we can start doing our own insurance.
I agree, Chair. I think if you look through some of these policies and how much we're covered for, you could probably do away with some of them. I think some of them aren't essential. We had flagged that in our last report. We did question that, but there wasn't a commitment at the time to actually drop those. And we did discuss self-insurance of the fleet as well. They are options. And I'm happy to bring those back if there is an appetite to look at that further.
Well, it's only my own appetite. I don't know whether the committee would want to look at it, but I just think, because all we need to know is we've got, say, commercial motors, right? What have we claimed over the last 5 years versus what we've paid? Okay, so we need to make decisions on that. What we must have should be highlighted, like public liability and professional indemnity insurance and certain things like that. But should I see one down here that we're covered for travel? And I think if you book it up on your credit card, like we've got, I think there's travel and part of the credit card payment, as an example. Yeah, I don't know. That's just me. I'm always, insurance is something that I shake at all the time.
And the analysis we did last time would have been positive to not insure the fleet and self-insure. So we have done that analysis.
But I wonder if we could look at more wider.
In terms of the other policies as well.
Yeah.
Happy to do so.
But it's only if you see it's warranted and the savings are there, but, it's a hell of a bill.
Yeah. And I think there are some opportunities there. I'm happy to, if the committee wishes to, bring that back to the next meeting for a discussion.
I support the insurance one on the cars because, depending on how many accidents you do have, which seems to have reduced over the last 12 months, with your input of risk and frameworks into then health and safety. And if we're not spending anywhere near that amount per year, isn't it easier for us to just take off the gains and pay for the costs of repairs and maintenance? It just reduces that, and that money stays in the bank and earns for us. There's other things like the travel one. I agree with you, Jeff. These days, travel's not really insurable. We're sending Jono over to, Japan to have a look at something over there, and something. It's just not a thing, On a plane that was 45 minutes late.
This is an example. We insure ourselves for crime for $1 million. Premium's 10,000, but our excess is 25,000. That's an example.
And the reality is, if they're going to smash something, it's probably cheaper to just get a contractor in to fix a window and a door, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think there are opportunities within this. So I'll bring back something for the next committee meeting. I think that's the committee wishes to have it.
So, Joe?
Oh, yeah, just with our vehicles, you want to look at, I don't know, the garaging, but if you're garaging much of the fleet in a tsunami zone or something like that, because that's what the zone is here, isn't it? You may wish to keep your insurance because 127k if you have some catastrophic wipeout. Yeah, so you want to look at the risk and maybe keep some.
Yeah, Bruce,
Check. Just a question. That commercial motor, that's not only covering the damage to our vehicles of accidents, but also damage to other property and vehicles. So it's external as well as internal. So
correct.
Yeah. So you got to balance one against the other. If it was just, covering our own internal, well, then I'd say scrap it altogether. But got to factor in.
It could be third party. All we need. I don't know.
Well, that's
we need to look at it. That's what we're here for. So.
To me, the eye-popping one is all things marine or maritime. They're dear, and they're on the way up, and you can see the reason why. And not just our new Waikari, it's all things maritime. But that's something we're probably going to have to either wear or examine. It's just a life thing. Anyway, good discussion. Anyway,
through you, Mr. Chair. In the iwi space, insurance is vexatious, always. And we're probably looking at a managed funds approach. And I wonder if it's something you couldn't take that local government association of Santana. Because what happened with the kohanga reo is that the individual kohanga could never afford their insurances for their buildings because they never had the fees and money there. So they went to a single cover for all of the 80,000 sites across the country and reduced a lot of the claims that were going to be insured against and just went for the big stuff. So the whole building rather than the broken window approach. Within 2 years, the money they'd saved from the premiums, they were able to use for that self-funding. And then over time, that builds up a surplus. And then you add more to your managed funds program that Simon was talking about. So
I think the report last time you did, Bruce, I think it was 3 years, was it? 3 to 5 years, but we would be positive or something like that, wasn't it? And when we've already got a balance sheet, it's not as if,
Yeah. I would support George's caller there. I mean, club responses always work better, don't they? And I know Farmers Mutual Insurance, and I own my little property at Hikarangi. I used to insure everything, including my house in town with FMU, and it was way cheaper than anyone else. I wasn't much of a farmer, but but I had a rural property. So I'm just wondering if regional government's got any kind of a club response.
Just a word from Washington as well, because we were a member of that risk pool, syndicated local government insurance plan. And to this date, we've still got liability. We've still got payments we need to make because of other councils' weather-tight building issues. So
so we're not suggesting you go on there.
No.
We do it ourselves.
Just
Particularly the big ones that owe a lot of things.
just remind
just in house, yeah.
liability, and those issues are still being worked through. And when I get more detail, I will bring that back to this committee because there's still claims there.
I think you got to be careful. I employed a chap. His father asked me to employ him because he'd been kicked out of his church. And anyway, he went to the pictures. First time he's ever been to the pictures because his religion doesn't allow him to go to the pictures. When he went there, his car got stolen. I found his car wasn't insured because it's a church. So be careful.
Thank you for that.
Won't mention it. Okay. Any other comments?
sorry, Mr. Chair, you could mention the picture theatre, so we can all take some risk on that as well.
Any other comments? All right, so that's part of the meeting. We move into business with public excluded. Does anyone need to leave the room?
Yeah, just a procedural matter. Item 7.2, what's the need? Why are we going to public